Hi guys, welcome to the first lesson of the Batman Utility Belt C# project. So in this topic, what you're going to be working on is a rather large major project. It's going to take us a little while to build. Okay, what I thought I'd do right now is I'll just start off by showing you what the final project will look like after it's been finished. Okay, so basically when you open up C# and you push start, you'll be able to see the project working. It's building in the background. Essentially, we're creating a very simple activity project game with a Batman theme to it. Okay, so what we're going to do today is build this form window, this Batman form, but you'll actually see that we're going to add on a whole bunch more after. So essentially, it's a very simple concept. Basically, this is your home page, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 activities to choose from. You can navigate back and forth between them after they're all finished. So we'll take it one form at a time. Today we're going to work on building this form, but over time you'll be able to build something that does this. So essentially, you click on the Comic Sans, and it creates a new window where you can type in a specific message to someone. It's going to be able to change it so that it's got bold and italic. It's also counting the number of words that are present in the program. Okay, and I can click Utility Belt and take me back to my main window. For the Gotham one, the Gotham's a lot more straightforward. Basically, it's a calculator that works out spheres, surface area, volume, and so forth. Essentially, all I have to do is type in a value, and it will work out the remaining values for me. Okay. If I click on the Batmobile one, the Batmobile's a bit more of a fun activity. Essentially, I can use a slider to create a certain number of laps that change. Once I've decided how many I want, I will use a randomizer and a timer function that actually moves the picture from one side of the screen to the other to create the illusion of producing laps. It also randomly chooses a winner. It chooses a winner based on who actually finished first. But who actually finished first is actually a randomized choice each time. So I could run that over and over, and theoretically it would give me a different answer every time. Finally, with the Bat Meals little activity, this is a calculator and a restaurant menu ordering system. Essentially, I can choose a pizza with a certain choice of toppings and size, add it to my order, create a different variation, add that one too, create some more after that, and again and again. I can make the order as big as I want, but then I can also print the order, and that's actually going to bring up the general print window so that I can print out a feature at the end of it. Okay, I won't bother printing it now, but I'll go back to the utility belt and I'll close this project because this is the finished one. I actually want to show you how to build it right from the start. So I'm going to close this solution and I'm going to create a new one now. So I'm going to create a new project. Okay, so what do I want? I want to have a Windows C# project. Where am I looking? Oops, all languages, C#. Console application, Windows Forms app. Okay, so this is what you're looking for. We're looking for a C# application that does a Windows form. So those boxes, the things that we can add buttons to and everything, they are Windows forms. Okay, so I'm going to click on that project. I'm going to click next. I'm going to give my project a name. So I'm going to call it Batman Utility Belt. Okay, you'll see that it saves in that location by default. You can move it if you wish. If you're trying to transfer between USBs and stuff like that, it can become problematic. I'm going to leave mine where it is for now, and I'm going to click on Create. Okay, you can export as well later on. It's not like you're tied into it after all that. Okay, so once you've created your form, you'll get presented with a screen that looks something like this. Here's my big form. I don't need it to be as massive as the one that they give you by default. Okay, what I've got here is more than sufficient. Now, I'm not going to give you specific settings and width and diameters and stuff for every single form unless it's necessary. So for something like the Batman racing game, the Batmobile one, for us to have the ability to do the laps and everything, you do need to have the actual dimensions that I provide. But if not, you just create the interface as close to what I produced as possible. It's not entirely an issue or problematic to have it slightly different. Okay, so we're going to start off by giving some temporary setups. Sorry, not temporary setup, the actual setups. And what I want is I'm going to start it so that I've got a black background. So you can see up here under my properties window, I've got back color. Okay, and I'm going to change it so that it has the black feature. Whoops, I want custom black. There we go. Okay, so now that we've got that black background happening, sorry, I just fixed my cursor then. We've got a nice background here. I want to now change this title. So if you scroll down to the name of the form where it's got text, okay, and we're going to make that so it actually says Batman Utility Belt. Okay, now you can see I've got Batman Utility Belt there. All right, now that does not change the name of the form, that just changes the title that appears. So you can see up the top here it still says Form 1. So what I want to do up here is I want to make it where it says Name Form 1, and I'm going to give it a name with our C# coding conventions, which is FRM, and I'm going to call it FRM Batman with a capital B, okay, using that camel code. Okay, FRM Batman. All right. After this, now we're going to add on a few additional features. Now, I will warn you that one of the things you're going to have prepared before you build this project is you're going to need to have a picture of the Batman symbol. Now, it doesn't matter which one you've got. Okay, you can actually have the same one as me. That's not an issue. You can have one that's slightly different. Doesn't matter, as long as you can do the next task, which is the ability to size and resize the object. You're going to be fine. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a label. Now on the left side of the screen right now I've got it slightly minimized. You can see my toolbox. I'm just going to click on toolbox and I'm going to pin it back open again because I'm going to add on a few additional features. As I said before, it's much easier, I find, to just have all the forms objects available to you rather than try to remember which category they fall under. Sometimes you might find with generations that they change the type of the category anyway, so it is much easier just to have everything open because you can sort it alphabetically. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to add on a label. Okay, now you can't quite see too much of it right now. I'm going to rename it so that instead of being called Label 1, it is called LBL Utility Belt. And instead of being an empty label, I want it to be Utility Belt. Okay, and instead of being in black text, I want the text to be yellow. So you can see I've got font colors here. Whoops. And I'm going to change my font colors to something different. Okay, that's a bit too dark. I might go, can I actually find a nice bright yellow? There you go, gold, that'll do. Alright, I'm going to make it a bit bigger as well, so instead of size 8 font, I might go to, let's say, 12, and I'm going to change bold from false to true. Okay, so I've got Utility Belt written here now for me, and that's going to appear on my form. Now, at any time, you can just test these forms. You can click on play and start. It'll start to compile in the background, and it'll show you what your form looks like once it's built. So you can see right now that's essentially it. That's my form. Okay, it doesn't do anything else. There's no buttons on it. So I'm going to press stop and we'll keep building. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to add on a picture. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down a bit further from my toolbox and I'm going to click picture, drag picture onto my form. Okay, now you can see I've got this little icon here, this little arrow that appears in the top right corner. This is the easiest and fastest way to add in the picture that you want. Now, as I said, you do need to have the picture downloaded to your computer. If you download something from Google or Bing or whatever, make sure you give it a proper name though. Don't keep it with a really long gibberish name. It's going to make it a lot more problematic later on if you can't identify it. So as you'll see from mine, when I click on this and press choose image, I'll choose it from my local resource and I'll click on import. Oops. So resource file, and I'm going to click on import. You'll see that on my desktop I've got something very simply named Batman. Okay, so I'll just show that again. I don't want it to be a local resource. I'm going to add it to my project files because I want to add it into my system. Okay, so there's a problem that people have where they add in a picture, but it doesn't actually get added to the project itself. It just gets added to the form. Please make sure you're choosing project resource file and you import it into your project resources. So as I said, desktop, Batman, open. Okay, there's my big Batman symbol. I'm going to click on OK, and now it's got my symbol in here as well. Okay, the problem I've got obviously now is that it doesn't fit correctly, so let's do a bit of changing here on our properties. Alright, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to change it so that it says pick Batman, okay, because we're going to give it a nice name. Okay, I'm going to scroll down a bit more. I might just make that a bit bigger so I can read the properties again. Okay, I'm going to click on this little option here and click size mode, and I'm going to say stretch image. Okay, and you can see now that it actually fits into my box a lot more nicely. I don't really want it to be that small, so I can click and drag it, and because I've got that stretch image, it will automatically adjust as well. Okay, I'm just going to backtrack for a second now because I want to show you something in the Solution Explorer. So I did have the Properties window open and I've got the Solution Explorer now, but what you might have noticed is that I've got a Resources folder that's appeared, and within that Resources folder is that Batman symbol. Okay, so what that's telling me is that I have correctly added this PNG file into my Resources folder. Now, what does that actually mean? Well, you can actually right-click on that and say Open Folder in the File Explorer, and it'll show you that I've actually got a folder now that has all of these pictures saved in here. And you can see that, you know, this is just my Documents folders, and it's got the Batman UtilityBelt. Okay, there's my project file, and inside here I've got all my code files and everything, but I've also got a Resources folder which now stores that picture. So I can export this whole project, and that picture will go with it as well. Okay, so by doing that, adding to the resources, that's a really important step to continue using. Okay, let's go back to my properties window. I'm going to click back on my object and see our properties here. By the way, you can always just, you know, tab and flick between these different windows whenever you need. You can pin them and unpin them as needed. If you do ever accidentally close it, most of the time you can find it by clicking View, turn your Solution Explorer back on, or turn your toolbars and your properties window wherever you need to find it. Okay, properties window that goes down the bottom there, just behind a picture of me. Okay, so I'm going to keep that little picture just there right now. I might make it slightly smaller. And now what we're going to do is we're going to add on some buttons. Okay, so we're going to actually add 4 buttons this time. Okay, I'm going to click on my first button, I'm going to drag it, and I'm going to put it here. Okay, so the first button is going to be the Comic Sans button. Okay, so, whoops, sorry, I didn't mean to push that one. Alright, so I'm going to click on my Comic Sans button. Alright, let's give it a name. Hopefully you've got the conventions right. We want BTN for button, Comic Sans. Okay, that's the name of my button. Now I want the text on the button to say Comic Sans, and you'll see that it appears here like that. Now, from this point forward, I'm going to let you decide kind of what formatting you choose for your project, for your buttons. Okay, but what I do want you to do is keep the same formatting for all 4 buttons. Okay, so the best thing to do is to actually create the format on one of them, and then we're going to duplicate these buttons multiple times. So, like I said, you can choose different settings if you want. I'm going to make it so it's size 12 and they appear bold. Okay, and I'm going to make the buttons a bit bigger. Okay, I'm also going to change a couple of little effects. You'll see. Whoops. Flat style. Pop up. No, not that one. Yeah, I'll just leave that as standard. There was something else I was looking for, but I can't see it right now. I'll just leave those ones like that. Okay, so we'll have Comic Sans. Okay, now, as I said, you can keep the same form. You can choose whatever formatting you want, but try to keep them the same for each one. So I'm actually just going to copy this button and duplicate it. Okay, so right click and paste, copy and paste, and now I've got another one. Okay, I'll also paste a third. I might actually make mine slightly different this time and go 4 straight across the middle. Okay, it isn't important, the formatting. Try to make it as close to mine as you can. You can see as I'm clicking on them, they're actually snap blocking as well, which is actually kind of helpful. I might just try to move that slightly more into the center. Okay, so there's my Comic Sans button. You'll see the other buttons as I click on them. You'll see these names are slightly, it just has button 1, 2, and 3. That's fine because we want these to change. All right, so the next one we want is we're going to make this one called Gotham. We'll make this one called Bat Meals, and we'll make this one called Batmobile. Oops. Okay, now don't forget to give the actual name to the button as well. So this is the Batmobile, BTN Batmobile. BTN Bat Meals. Oops, spelled that one wrong, didn't I? And BTN Gotham. Okay, so now you've got those 4 buttons. Now, what you may have noticed is that I did not double click on those buttons. If you double click on the buttons, it will start to automatically generate the code that goes with them. Okay, now it's not entirely problematic, but if you've done it before you've named the buttons, it will create the button using the former name. So button 1 or button 2, button 3, and so forth. So what you'll see now is if I double click on Comic Sans, it automatically opens up my new code editor window, but it's got the private void BTN Comic Sans button, the correct name, and it's got, whoops, scroll bar, it's got the click under it as well, so that I know that I'm talking about that specific one. So if you've accidentally double clicked on the previous button and it's got, you know, button 1 or something like that before you've done it, okay, try to be very careful about how to correct it. You can't actually just delete it. Okay, it does actually become more problematic by doing that. All right, so just be very careful about those. Okay, now with the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add on a horizontal scroll bar. Okay, and if you scroll all the way down to the H, you'll see this one here, H scroll bar. I'm going to drag this one on. Again, not particularly problematic about the way it looks. I'm going to make this one today exactly the same length as the button features that you can see there. I've got the bar that appears on the left here, but you can change these settings. Okay, so let's go and start our settings right now. I don't want H scroll bar to be my end. Okay, I want it to be HSB UtilityBelt. Okay, horizontal scroll bar UtilityBelt. Okay, you can also change things like the increments. So you can see here I've got maximum 100, okay, and you know, minimum 0 and all that kind of stuff. Okay, well that's a good thing to have. Okay, we're going to change some of those in a moment. Okay, so which settings do we want? Well, we're going to start by changing the left and the right settings. So how far to the left and how far to the right of this project can we actually make that little scroll bar move? Okay, and we want to make it so that our minimum level is not 0, it actually starts at 100, and the maximum level is 300. Okay, that'll make a little bit more sense later. You'll notice that actually changed the value down the bottom as well. Okay, so what is that actually doing? Well, when I click on play, it's going to make it so that the value on the left, the value on the left is 100 and the value on the right is 300. Okay, if I actually created a little text box window or something to show you the current value of the horizontal scroll bar, it would move something between 100 and 300. Okay, so that's what I've just done then. Now, why do I want to do that? Well, I want to make it so that I can go from between 100% of this size to 300%. Okay, now those percents actually have nothing to do with the 100 and 300. That's a happy coincidence. It's very lucky that we can do it that way. So that's what we're going to focus on. Okay, so let's start doing some of the code now that we've set up this major project. Okay, so this is the default setting right now. And we're going to do this by starting on the horizontal scroll bar. Okay, so if you click on your horizontal scroll bar and then double click on it, as long as you've named it first, double click on it, and you should see that you've now got private void horizontal scroll bar utility belt. I don't actually need my properties window open right now, so I might just hide that, and I'm going to hide my toolbox too, because I don't need the toolbox in the properties window when I'm working in my code. Okay, I might even just try to make that slightly bigger for you. Okay, so you can see now I've got private void horizontal scroll bar utility belt with a trigger event of scroll. So keep in mind that when you talk about things like the button, it's a click event that triggers the code in that particular object. Well, the trigger event for the horizontal scroll bar is the scroll itself, and that should obviously make sense. All right, so be careful about where you've got your brackets, and let's add some of the code first. All right, so I'm going to give you some comments to start with. So basically what we want to do is we want to set the height and the width of the picture object, okay, which is that Batman symbol, to the value, of the scroll bar. Okay, and we want to adjust it. Adjust the position with ease. Cool. All right, so that's what we want to actually do here. We want our scroll bar to be able to change our picture for us. Okay, not a particularly amazing feature, but something that will teach you a little bit about some cool code values. So what we want to do is the horizontal scroll bar has a value between 100 and 300. We want to have that value reference the specific height and width of the picture object. So we can take a value from one object and assign it to be some sort of setting in a different object. And that's what we're going to do here. So what we want is the pick Batman, okay, and we want to reference the height property, okay, and that's going to be equal to the horizontal scroll bar utility belt value. Okay. We also want our pick Batman width to be our horizontal scroll bar utility belt value. Okay, but what you're probably thinking is, well, why do we, let's say the value was 200. If I create the height and the width to be 200, isn't that now going to create a square Batman symbol? Well, yeah, you'd be right. Okay, so what we actually want to do is we want to make the width exactly twice as high or twice as long as the height. So I'm just going to simply make it 2 times the horizontal scroll bar value. So what that's going to do is if it's got 200 as the height, it'll make 400 as the width. Okay, so I'm actually using maths now to adjust the value of a different object, okay, using the property from another object. All right, the last thing we need to do is we actually need to then change it so that if the size of the image changes, it changes and stays centered. Okay, so what you're going to have up now is a problem is the location of the Batman object is not going to change, or at least the start position object. It's going to have that top left corner fixed. So if you make it bigger, it's actually going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, but it will actually get bigger in an increment. Okay, like it will move to the side. And what we want to do is we want to make it stay in the center and get bigger from the center. Now, in order to do that though, we have to actually adjust the position of the starting point of the picture first. Okay, and what you do then is you actually have to adjust the left setting. Okay, now the left setting, not location, sorry, you'll get used to the ability of the auto tabs and stuff like that sometimes, but sometimes it will do things that you don't want it to do. So what you want to do is you want to have the left setting be slightly different depending on what the value is. Okay, now I'm going to recommend something along the lines of this. You're going to have it 200 pixels across. Then you're going to have the value itself of the horizontal scroll bar, so 200 plus 100, okay, minus the width of the Batman picture itself. Now that can be a bit problematic to try to understand what that means. It's a lot easier to reference it and understand it if you actually put some numbers into that field and then think, well, where did it actually appear on my page? Okay, and you can actually tell that when you look at the form as well. Okay, so that's the first thing we're going to do. That's the first piece of code. Basically, all it does is take the value of the horizontal scroll bar and assign it in some mathematical adjustment to the height, width, and position of the picture that appeared on the form as well. So if I execute that code now, I'm clicking on play, it's compiling in the background. As I start to scroll across, hopefully it's going to start to make it so that my character has appeared further into the middle of the screen. Now what you may have noticed was that it actually moved a little bit to the left. Now to me that represents that 200 was actually not quite enough. Okay, so I'm going to click on stop and I'm going to make it so that instead of saying 200 it actually says we might go 400, and I'll recompile it and just see how close I can get to it. Okay, now the better way to do this, okay, so that actually went too far across now. The better way to do this would be to actually work out exactly what position you've got your image in. Okay, I might just cut it down to 300. Okay, and then use that position itself to help you identify where. So you can see now the picture identifies much closely into the middle. If I clicked on my form itself, clicked on my picture, went back to my properties, you would see that the location of the item is at position 193. Okay, or that's where I was trying to start it from. Okay, so that's what I want it to happen. So I've got to use that number. It's not 193 across. I've got to go back and forth each time, but you can get close enough doing that. I'll leave it to you guys to try to get as close as you can. Obviously, with different settings and different forms, I could have given you exact numbers, but it's a lot more fun to try to work it out yourself. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up, or the final thing we're going to do actually, is we're going to set up the default settings so that I've got all my other forms pre-created. Okay, we're not going to add any of the details to the forms or anything aside from the name itself, okay, or the buttons or anything like that. But we are going to make it so that when I click on these buttons, the new form loads up and appears. Okay, so let's click on, I'm going to close my might pin my properties there actually, sorry. And let's add on a new form by simply clicking on Project, Add Form. Okay, you see up the top it's got Add Form. Alright, and I'm going to click on a new form. It's going to choose form. Yep, just there like that. That's fine. Instead of form2.cs, let's give it a proper name. Okay, I want it to be, FRM Comic Sans. Okay, FRM Comic Sans. You'll see it's a Visual C# and it's a Windows form. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click Add. Now, what you might see, or what you will see rather, on the Solution Explorer, okay, is I've now got my Batman utility belt. I've got my original form that I created there, which I actually have a name there, and I've got my new form now, FRM Comic Sans. Okay, I might just rename this form so that it's got FRM Utility Belt. Okay, FRM Utility Belt. Alright, and I've got FRM Comic Sans. Okay, and you can see that I've still got my original form there. Okay, I've got the tab there. I can actually close that. I don't need it open. Okay, and even if I do close it, I can go back to my Solution Explorer and I can double click on it again to reopen it. Okay, so you can always navigate back and forth between your the various windows that you need. I might just pin my Solution Explorer open right now while I've got multiple forms. Oops. Just trying to make that small. There we go. Okay, now I can see it. Alright, so I've got FRM Comic Sans. It doesn't have, anything on it, and I'm not worried about that right now. All I really want is we're going to create these forms so that we can simply click on this button and have that form appear and this form disappear. We can click on that button and another form will appear and we'll be able to go back and forth each time. Okay, so one thing we want to do is we're going to create a simple button on each of these other forms to enable us to go back to the utility belt. Okay, so I'm going to click on Toolbox, I'm going to click on Button, drag it to the bottom, I'm going to rename it, I'll give it a text name called UtilityBelt. Okay, and I'm going to give it a name, BTN UtilityBelt. Okay, so now I've got a button that will hopefully I'll be able to click and it take me back to my previous one. Now notice I haven't clicked on any of these buttons just yet. I've only created them. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to double click on my Comic Sans. Okay, and you'll see that I've got BTN Comic Sans click. That's what I want. So what do we want to have in this code? Well, we simply want to have, I'll just make it a, oh no, that's alright, you can see that. We're going to make it so that I've got show the Comic Sans form and hide the startup form. Okay, so 3 very simple codes to do that. So when you create a project, you've got to create an instance of anything that you use. Okay, an instance means you've got to use the details of what a button is or what a form is, what a text box is, to create a version of it. Okay, an instance or a version. Okay, so what we're doing now is we're going to create an instance of the Comic Sans form. Okay, now you don't have to worry too much about the way it's written. This is pretty common to just say form type equals a new version of this form. Okay, and whether you're doing form button, form text, it would have been pretty much the same thing. Okay, so form FRM Comic Sans equals new FRM Comic Sans. So create a new instance of it. All right, now what we want to do is we simply want to show that form. Show. And we want to hide the current form. Now you're probably thinking, do I want to type in FRM UtilityBelt? Well, yeah, you can. It'll probably work. But another cool feature is you can use this FRM dot. Oops, not close. I beg your pardon. Dot hide. Okay. So a very straightforward concept. I create a new instance of the form. I show the new form, and I hide the current one that I want. Okay, very simple concept right now. Now, before I go ahead and test it though, I want to do the reverse, okay, on the other form. Okay, so I want to make sure that's working as well. Okay, so it's a fairly simple idea. Basically, you just want to do the reverse of it. I'll go to my utility belt. I have named it BTN UtilityBelt. That's good. It's got a title, a text title. I'll double click on it, and I've got private void BTN UtilityBelt click. Okay, and I just want to do the opposite. So basically I want to close the current form. Okay, I want to create a new instance of my original form. Okay, now the original form was the UtilityBelt one. RM UtilityBelt. Okay, equals new FRM UtilityBelt. What am I doing wrong here? Check something out. Oh, it's actually called FRM Batman. My mistake, sorry. Let's go back to this one. Not FRM UtilityBelt, FRM Batman. Okay. Thought there was something wrong with that. It wasn't showing up for me. Okay, FRM Batman. Alright, so now that I created a new instance of it, let's close the previous one. So I'm basically going to go this.close. Okay, and I want, oh, should be capital. There we go. This.close, and I want to show the Batman one. Okay, so that's good. That's all you had to do. So create a new instance of the Batman one, close the current, show the new one. Okay, very simple like that. All right, now I'm just going to save all of those so that you know that they're saved. But we're going to go back now to the main form, because what we want to do is we want to create these other three. But one really cool thing we can do is we can actually copy this button and paste that onto all the other three. Okay, because all we have to do is just use that same concept of close the current one, okay, and show the new one. Now, that's one of the reasons I chose to use the this.close, because if I said frm comic sans.close, I wouldn't be able to paste it now onto frm batmeals, because it wouldn't, there's no point, it wouldn't match up. But if I use this.close, it will know that it's talking about the current form that it has opened, okay, which allows us to actually kind of use that code over and over again. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on that UtilityBelt button, I'm going to press copy, and I'm going to add on my other forms. Okay, so these are my other forms. Add another Windows form. I want it to be frm batmeals.c#. Okay, and I'm going to paste my little UtilityBelt button there. Even if I double click on it, it does not have that code, but I can just copy that code from my previous one and paste it back in again. Okay, so that's pretty cool. But at least it does actually have that UtilityBelt name and even the text and even the name as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that one. I'm going to add on another form. Again, it's a Windows Visual C#. This one is going to be the frm Batmobile. Okay, I'm going to add that one as well. I'll paste on, oops, it's stuck in my memory right now. I'll copy that one, go back to the Batmobile, paste it again, double click on it, there's my text, my code, and I've pasted my code yet again. Okay, it's just the same code each time. Close the current form, create a new Batman one, show the Batman one. And now we want one more after that, which is going back to, oops, what's the last one? The Batmeals, the Gotham one. So we need to do add Windows form, frm Gotham. Yes. Okay, I'm going to click on add. I'm going to copy my button again. Double click on my button, copy my code, paste it on again, save all. And now what you'll notice as well on your Solution Explorer, you should have all of these additional forms that have appeared for you. Okay, and you can double click on these, go to navigate between them. Okay, we don't actually need any of them open right now. The only one that you do want open is the main one, because now that we've created them all, I don't actually care about what appears on them right now. That'll be in the subsequent lessons. We're going to work on those later. Okay, but what we want to do is anytime I click on Comic Sans, I want the Comic Sans form to open and close. Anytime I click on Gotham, I want that to open and close and back and so forth. So let's go ahead and do that. If I double click on Comic Sans, you'll see that I've done that code already. So let's click on Gotham and start working on that one. And what you're probably not going to be surprised to learn is that the code is very much the same as the other one. So I'm going to copy all of that code from my Comic Sans. I'm going to paste it into my Gotham. But hopefully you guessed that all I have to do is change it so that instead of saying frm Comic Sans, it says frm Gotham. Okay, and that's it. That's all you needed to do. So show the Gotham form and hide the startup form. Okay, and now we're going to do that again for the Batmeals. Okay, I'll paste that in. Oops. Paste that in. I want the Batmeals form to appear. Please be very mindful of capital letters. You know, if you created Batmobile or Batmeals with a capital M or a lowercase m, be very careful about which one you're using. You can just verify by looking at your Solution Explorer and making sure you've got all of that working. I'll do the last one now, which is the, I did it again. Just the Batmobile. save all of those. Okay, so what I've got now is hopefully all of my buttons work. I can open and close my various forms. I'm going to click on play while it compiles in the background for the first time. Hopefully we'll have no issues and we'll be able to click on these little forms. It should work. I click on Comic Sans, you can see my Comic Sans form. Click on UtilityBelt, it closes and goes back to my main one. Click on Gotham, I've got my Gotham form. Click on UtilityBelt to go back. I'll just test my Batmeals and my Batmobile, and we seem to be working great right now. And of course my horizontal scroll bar is still there as well. Okay, so guys, that's the splash page or the dashboard page that I want you to work on. Okay, it will take you a while to do all of these tasks. Okay, and I do split them up into multiple lessons. The next one will be on the Comic Sans and so forth. Okay, but try to make sure that you've got all of that completed. Have a good afternoon. Thank you.